Hello, Vanakkam and welcome to Sudarshan Speaks. I'm Sudarshan, I'm the host. Today I have this wonderful person called Pramod Rao. Hey Pramod, welcome to the show.
Hey Sudarshan, thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Right. About Pramod, I would he's also known as Eminem of India. Recently, they launched a product called Threado.ai in Product Hunt, and which is like a huge hit and got many of the eyes. That's when I came to know about Threado. Then, kind of tried to reach out to him. Then got him to the show. And about he was also VP of marketing at Zomato. Like he was, I think, employee number 11 or 13, Pramod.
Yeah, I was the 13th employee when I joined.
Yes, so yeah, he was like 13th employee of Zomato, and he built the team there. He took care of marketing function there, and just like he worked till closely about 9 to 10 years in Zomato, then came out, started Threado, and we have like a lot of things to uncover. Yeah, Threado is a community analytics tool, and now they are kind of moving to community powered support, which we'll try to talk about in detail in later part of this episode. We'll start with Pramod. Pramod, I think I gave a brief introduction about you. If I missed anything, yeah, please.
No, thanks Sudarshan for the generous words and introduction. I'm happy to dive into anything specific, but just a quick note on Threado. So yeah, we are today a support co-pilot. We help businesses provide support to their customers wherever they are, whether it's on Slack, Discord, chat or email. And we believe that long-lasting businesses are built keeping the customers at the center, right? And if you look at companies, at least in the last decade that have emerged, right, where we didn't discover the company through an ad, but probably through word of mouth, like Notion, Figma, some of these companies, largely has been growth through the community, and the community is at the center of their approach of how they enable their customers to engage with each other and learn about their product, get better at what they do, and we want to enable more businesses to do that, right? So yeah, so we make it easy for community and support teams to do this and help their customers wherever they are. Right, I'm happy to dive into how we started and what the product does. But yeah, over to you, Sudarshan. You can guide me there.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, yeah. Like you started your career around like you finished your undergrad at IIT Kharagpur, right? Yeah. Then Bain, then Zomato, then Threado.
Yeah,
So how it was like? What made you quit the job from Zomato and start Threado?
sure. Yeah. Yeah, so I did engineering and like we were just discussing a while back, did not pursue it after the 4 years of engineering. I joined Bain 2007, spent 3 years there, and that's where I met the founders of Zomato. Right, Zomato started as a weekend project
Oh,
at Bain in our Gurgaon office.
so
For
Deepander also part of Bain when you were working at Bain.
Yes,
Cool.
Deepinder and Pankaj were both part of Bain. So saw it as I was a user of the product. It started as an internal website and evolved from there. And they spent close to a year and a half building it as a weekend project, right? And I think 2009 is when they started doing it full time, and they quit Bain. I joined them in 2010, and for me, yeah, I think at that point it was more of I enjoyed working with both of them, and I wanted to just have a change from Bain and figure out what to do next. I was exploring few other startups, but was fortunate that Dipender and Pankaj had also a role which they felt I could take on. So yeah, I joined them
So
as
you are the first
an
marketing
employee.
hire or someone else
Yeah,
before you?
yeah. So before me, Pankaj was handling it,
Okay.
and I joined and then started building the marketing team. And Pankaj focused on revenue
Cool.
after that, right? Like so, Yeah, so I spent close to 9 years there. It's a very fulfilling and exciting journey. Um, Largely focused on user growth and marketing, but it was like very non-linear in terms of the roles over the 9 years. Um, I think the reason why I transitioned from Zomato to then starting Threado, it wasn't like a straightforward, or I knew that I was going to start Threado when I was leaving Zomato. So I left Zomato in 2019. It was about eight years and like about 3 4 months that I spent there. Um, I had, one, I had transitioned from being in Gurgaon, which was the headquarters, to being in Bangalore, which is my hometown. So that happened after 7 years at Zomato. So yeah, I was looking to take a break, and I felt it just was a point where I felt that, okay, like, maybe pause and figure out what
Okay.
I might want to explore outside. There was just not a planned out decision. But I think I was at a point where I felt the team could carry on the work
Okay.
that we had done. I had a really good team in Bangalore as well, and I felt we were at a point where the industry also had consolidated by then. So we had acquired Uber Eats. I think Ola also shut down Food Panda, so it is just it just consolidated on the time, and I felt it was the right time to maybe take a pause and figure out what to do next, right? So yeah, so I spent about a year and a half after that before starting Threado, and it was largely a phase where I think I just was meandering, or like just figuring out stuff as it came along. Did a bit of consulting for a few months,
Okay.
and then I felt like, consulting was not, I mean, it's short term, it was fine, but like, that was not giving me any satisfaction as such, right? So then I explored about six other startup ideas before landing on Threado.
Okay.
So yeah, and I think it was just more on, I would spend time with the problem, for like a couple of months, figure out what solution might make sense.
Okay.
Um, and if I see, like, try to build like some prototype and get some validation from some users. Was going through that phase for like 6 or 7 startup ideas, and then um, just before Threado I was working on something, but the pandemic hit and I had to shut that down anyway. So
Okay.
so then I spent about like 3 4 months just going back to what I'd done before. What am I observing in terms of trends recently, in terms of like everything moving online, people connecting through communities, and that's it was largely taking a bet on the next decade being a place where communities would be core to how businesses and people connect, and um, that being a white space in terms of tools that exist today. Like if you look at marketing tools, they were largely in the last decade focusing on how can you spend your dollars better on SEM, SEO, or and not SEO, SEM, or like across Facebook, Google, YouTube's of the world. And I think they need to be a tool that helps you like build or like grow organically and think about how to set up a community and how to support your customers through that. So that's what like led to like starting Threado.
Like you took a break of like closely 1.5 years.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
between Zomato and Threado. Cool. So what?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, wasn't a planned one because by then, just before Threado, I was
Is
like,
there
I don't
any
know
kind of
what I'm doing.
like
Yeah.
any spiritual uh, time or something like that in that 1.5 years? What happened? Like except that consulting and like I mean wandering about like these six ideas which you mentioned.
Hmm.
Like what happened?
Nothing spiritual. I mean, like, I think as soon as I took a break, I did like travel for the initial couple of months
Okay.
because, and I was just disconnected from most of what was happening because, like, after 8 years of being um, on like one rhythm, like it was a sea change. Um, and yeah, I think 3 4 months into it, um, I was fine, but like I think my parents were like, "What are you doing sitting at home?"
Okay.
And that's where I started to take some consulting work, just so that. I can say that, hey, like I'm doing something productive and not just sitting at home, right? So did that for 3-4 months, and by then, yeah, I think it was close to about 8-9 months since I'd left. Or even, yeah, I think it was about like 9 months since I'd left Zomato, and then I felt like consulting was just not putting me out of the comfort zone, right? Which is when I decided, okay, like let me just stop and just like start figuring out what I want to do next, and then got into the process of like let me pick a problem, figure out what to do, and there's nothing spiritual as such. I think like I was obviously discovering more of myself in this process as well, um, and yeah, the 1.5 years was not planned. I think I was at a point just before Threado where I was completely lost. I didn't know where I was going. If I
This is
had
how did you feel like being in a role like vice president at in Zomato, then coming out like which like your parents mentioned, like you were sitting like you won't be doing anything productive, and how was that period of 8 months? Like how did you feel personally?
so personally it was great. If I had to
Okay.
do it again, I'd do it again, right? Like so, I highly recommend at some point like people to do it as well, depending on each one's situation, obviously. But for me, I think I needed it in general, like just to because in the past, like when you're in one set of like one rhythm, like I think you are in a box, which and it's great like to be in that world, but
Okay.
there's a lot happening outside of it as well, right? So and I don't think I was spending enough time to pause and just understand, okay, like what do I want to do, for the next year, 2 years, or whatever, or next 10 years. Although I don't have an answer to the next
Okay.
10 years, but yeah, it is more on just I think like just being yourself, right?
Okay.
Like and just letting things come and like go by, and just not analyzing too much, and just letting it going with the flow for a bit.
Okay.
So yeah, it's actually very relieving to do that. So
Okay.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, like so yeah, I think the parents part, it's valid, like parents having concern, because you've been with the company, because when I joined from Bain to Zomato also, they had a similar reaction, because they were like, you were in something that is super established, and then you joined, then it was called Foodie Way, which is
What made you
started
took
by
the decision to like jump to Zomato? Like, is that risk-taking mentality, or like you trusted Deepinder and Pankaj, or what made you took the
yeah,
decision?
I was actually like interviewing with few other startups. I mean, there were not too many startups at that point. I was interviewing with Quicker, I remember, and a couple other places. I joined, like my thought process there was, what is the worst that will happen? Like I'll have 2 years of great learning, and then like I'll figure something out, right? Um, and I enjoyed working with these two. So like both the and Pankaj had spent a lot of time at Bain working with them. So and was using their product, so I know the
Okay.
value of what they were building. They what they had done, um, and yeah, and then it's a leap of faith after that. So I don't know whether it's risk taking or what, but for me it was like, even if it fails, like so what?
So
Like
what?
it's still something I would have learned. Like spent 2 years doing something, right? The same thing after Zomato as well. I think like, it's more of, yeah, I'm still learning, and like it's not like I'm whiling away time, right? For anything, I I look at it as, if it works, great. If it does not work, it's still a learning opportunity, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Okay, you took a break of like closely
Yeah.
like 18 months and like explored six different ideas. And what made you decide that Threado is the one that you're gonna work for next 10 years, as you
Hmm.
mentioned? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I the 10 years bit is like it's more of, um, it's not like a plan, but it's more of, if you do you see yourself, or like at that point, like did I see myself like continuing with this problem like, am I passionate enough about this problem for a long enough time? And whether it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, does not matter, right? The idea that I was working before Threado was on something that I was not passionate about.
Okay.
Like I'd landed on that problem through a series of things which I'd done, and there are now startups which also solve it. But it is not something that I had experienced it myself, right? And when I was thinking of Threado, I really wanted it to be something that I had experienced myself. I had domain knowledge of, right? And the best for me, it was like if I'm picking up a problem, if I was the persona myself, like who I'm building it for, that's what I was thinking, like to pick. And for me, that was at the intersection of marketing, user growth, like we organic growth, especially, like that's what I like 8.5 years at Zomato. That was my approach always, like before you put a dollar on anything, like to get a user, have you exhausted all organic channels or not? And we had a very strong community playbook. I had a team of 35 community managers around the first 5-6 years of Zomato. So I wanted it to be at the intersection of that, like
Okay.
leveraging that experience, and then the problem, like that space, like I'm super passionate about,
Are that 35
and
people are like early users of Threado? Like
no,
few
these
of them.
were yeah, they were in the early team, and a lot of them were users of Threado and then became community managers. So, like
Okay.
we would hire from the community as well. Like I remember in Melbourne, we had hired. I think she was the number 2 user on Threado, and she was a food blogger.
Okay.
And I met her, and then it made sense to get her on board. She was passionate to build out Zomato in Melbourne as well. So yeah, I think for me, when starting Threado, I think it was one, I wanted it to be a problem that had a global canvas.
Okay.
Preferably in SaaS, because revenue would be upfront,
Yeah.
right? And I already had a consumer experience. You could say I took a leap of faith to just say, okay, let me figure out B2B. And yeah, third, I think it wanted to be something that, like had an overlap with what I'd done before, so that I deeply understand the problem. Right?
I totally didn't notice this, like the transition from a consumer business to like a B2B thing, like, which is kind of like I get this. I heard this a lot, that B2B marketing is sort of boring comparatively to consumer marketing. I mean,
Hmm.
direct to consumer marketing. Like, one of my friend, she was a copywriter at Zomato. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
and I told her to try some companies like Freshworks or so that she get paid well, and
Hmm.
she was like, no, I won't go there. Like, here is the fun. Like, what made you took this decision? Like yeah, you mentioned a couple of them, but
Yeah.
anything
Hmm.
else?
No, I think I've seen it is more of like I had like 8.5 years of consumer experience. So in one of the criteria that when I was exploring was I didn't want to build another marketplace business. It was just I wanted to explore something outside of it, right? Like my core, like in the past life, was like marketplace, two-sided, three-sided marketplace business, and yeah, I felt I wanted to do something else. Second, B2B, I think for me appealed in terms of when I started Threado, I was bootstrapping it. Like, for me, like I felt, okay, B2B, building it out, like for the first year, especially, like, getting revenue upfront, it made sense. Yeah, it was also about like, let me learn this. Like, I've not been in this, so I'll be out of my comfort zone, and I can maybe apply some principles of consumer marketing to the B2B side. So yeah, I think B2B marketing can be as exciting. So it
Definitely
has to be there.
appreciate you for
Yeah.
that. Like yeah, like I've been living in your website for last 2 days. Read all the case studies there, like almost all the case studies. Like the way you wrote that, like which is kind of a blend of memes and the content, and also this. I mean these resources and recent PH launch. I mean the product and launch. the rap. Dude, I was a big fan of Rocket Lane funding announcement.
Yeah, yeah.
I used
So
to
I
listen that song
actually
like a
watched
typical
the.
song. Like I have like listened to that song, like that rap song for more than 10 times. I was big fan of them. Like when I saw your video, like I saw that like for 3 times in a row. Then I told Deepak, please get me Pramod on the show.
No, I'm essentially from Rocket Lane, and I really like how they market also. And that rap song was like for the funding announcement was really amazing. That and I think Gainsight is another brand in B2B. So the founder
Game
Nishmeta,
site.
Gainsight,
Spelling?
Gain,
Okay.
Sight.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've been around for 10 years. They're a unicorn. The founder is really amazing. Like he's known for doing rap songs.
Okay.
So yeah, they've done some really amazing ones. So yeah, I think what I mean is when I look at marketing, it's more of how deeply you can understand the customer you're building for, and can you connect with them like a human, right? And whether it is B2C, B2B, I think the principle is the same, right? Obviously, there's transaction, all of that, but um, I think like even at Zomato or like at Threado, the principle that we try to follow is can we be authentic, human, and have fun while we're doing it, right? And yeah, I think that's what hopefully you see also on
Who
what we do.
else do you look up to, like other than Gainsight? Who else doing it very naturally, more like more humanly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in the B2B sales,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
take inspiration from some of our peers, like, so there's Topline.
Okay.
I don't know if you've come across them, Toplyne. They do amazing content around PLG.
Okay.
I think they probably coined the term meme-led growth. They do a lot of fun stuff there. Um, I'm a big fan of Mailmodo. Mailmodo does amazing organic SEO content, and I like how they do educational content around emails, and it's a mature space, so it's great to see a brand like disrupt that in the way that they're doing that. There's Zera.io. They do content around product management, so I have seen them do some innovative stuff. Rocket Lane, definitely. They're also our customers. I really like
Yeah.
how they focused on their community right from the start. So they were very intentional about it. And you can see it in their content and approach in general. Yeah. Those are some brands and yeah, I mean, I think in the US there are many more. Like, Notion is one of them. They are one of our customers, and
Yeah.
you know, if you ever get a chance, I mean, like if you've been to a Notion event, you will just see the users are so passionate about the brand. It's mind blowing. That's like for me the holy grail. Like I think they hosted an event in Bangalore where there were 500 people who attended
I
from
think
the
it
Notion
happened like a
community.
couple of weeks back. Am I right? Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I think that they just have built something really amazing. Like not this product, but like a way or approach to building a company, right? So yeah.
Right. Okay. So yeah, we'll come to Threado now, and
Sure. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, like who are your customers? We are touching a bit in between. Like you mentioned names like Rocket Lane, Notion.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about who are your customers and like who are your target customers. Will
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So, like, we're building a support copilot for our primary persona is like B2B SaaS companies, right? PLG focus. Like, typically they would be Series A, Series B, and above, right? Having a strong like PLG focus to it, or like you could say customer focused in terms of providing support. Um, Developer tools like would fall in the similar category, like where they provide support through Discord or on GitHub open source projects. This is the primary persona. We do have a secondary persona, which is like edtech companies, because community is core to them. Like the operations is around like a cohort that engages on Slack
any
or
tech
Discord,
companies
something
you are
like that.
working with?
Yeah. So yeah, to name few tech companies. We have Scalar is a customer here.
Yeah, yeah.
Springboard would be in the US. GrowthX is a customer,
Okay.
is a recent customer as well. So yeah, and cohort-based courses typically, we have. So India, we have like Scalar, My Captain, GrowthX, US Springboard. We were, I think On Deck was one of our users earlier, but yeah,
Okay.
like, that is the domain that we operate in. The B2B SaaS, yeah, so our customers have been Notion, Mixpanel, Triple Whale, Apollo GraphQL, right? And these are, and let's say at home, it's like, Rocket Lane would be an example there. Um, and Apollo GraphQL is a developer tool as well. So Cube.dev is another developer tool that uses us. So yeah, that's sort of the persona that we serve. B2B SaaS
Yeah, tech
is the
companies.
primary. Yeah, I would say a B2B SaaS is where we focus our efforts, like, primarily on, and a secondary persona would be at tech companies. Yeah.
And when I saw that report
Yeah.
in community report 23 in
Yes.
your site, you saw like a huge growth in few segments like Web3 and D2C.
Yeah.
Like, is there
Yes.
any companies you're working with in those segments?
Yeah. So we do. Although it's not a large portion of the customer base that
Okay.
we serve, we do have some large companies there. So in Web3, Core DAO is one of our customers, right? It's one of the largest DAOs that exist there. They have a massive community on Discord. Big Time Studio is another, although that's like going into gaming side, right? So Web3 gaming are massive in terms of providing support to their users through communities, right? And there are a few we're in early discussions with, and they have access to our product, but they're not customers yet. Like, for example, Polygon would be one of them, right? And D2C, we had Ultra Human as our customers, and few others, but our major focus has not been D2C. We've
Cool.
not gone into that space. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we were talking about community support and few of your
Yeah.
accounts. So yeah, there is this buzz term called community-led growth, and
Mhm.
I don't think when I started to learn about all these things, uh, when I talk to few in the ecosystem, and they are like is a term which is came in the last 6 7 years, which is like
Yeah.
a normal self-serve model. That's it, nothing more than that. And
Correct. Yeah.
what would you say about CLG or community-led growth, and how it impacts the product, how it
Yeah. Sure.
helps? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like you rightly pointed, PLG, I think over the last decade has emerged, and still, like, grow in the growth phase right now. I think community-led growth has started to gain traction in the last 3 4 years. You could say it's adjacent to PLG. Like, you would see most of the PLG companies have a community motion. Like, at least, I read a report recently that in the Fortune 1000, at least 60 to 70% of PLG focused companies, they have a community motion in some form, right?
Okay.
Which is, um, and I think we'll see more of that happening going ahead, right? Almost every company would want. I think so. Taking one step back, um, how community plays a key role. Like, when I think, 20 years back or whatever, like, community was something around a passion, like, as
Yeah.
a hobby. Like, you would have these forums, which you could be a part of. Like, this is like Web2 forums that I'm talking about, right? But truly, like, even the Googles of the world, or like Apples of the world, I think, like, over the last 10 years, you will see that they reach out to developer communities. They want to create like this community of developers who are using their products, right? It's not something that, when we think of community, it doesn't come top of mind, but Google, Microsoft, Apple have been doing it for the last 10 years, where they build deep relationships, or like they invest in building this ecosystem in every country, where they want developers from India, or like, US, to work on their products, be the first ones to get to know what they've built. Like, for, let's say, the new version of iOS, how can developers build apps and businesses using that? And the great part about this is they're giving access to their products, like, to their what they build, to a set of early adopters who are creating some amazing things, right? Which helps them grow. So it's always an organic flywheel that starts out, a business opens up their doors, allows like early adopters to come in, and so it's like an open ecosystem in a way, right? Although Apple is closed, but they do open it up to their give early access to the developers to create things in that ecosystem, right? And the more they do that, it feeds into, let's say somebody creates, let's say 100 developers create like great products, they will talk about it, they will publish it in the app store, more users will discover it, hence more people come back to that ecosystem, right? And Apple benefits from that because that ecosystem is growing. That thing applies to like almost every flywheel that I've seen, and there's the same flywheel that we had at Zomato, right? We took immense effort to bring all the restaurants in a city, right? And the menus in one place. We open it up, open it up to users so that they come in and they can share their opinion on how a restaurant is and not, right? And then we meet the users on one-on-one basis or in a group, get them get a community together around these food experiences, right? The more they have these experiences and they share on Zomato, there's more content created, which means more people discover and then they come back to Zomato, right? So there's an organic flywheel that just develops, that more content leads to more users, leads to more content, leads to more users, right? And that's all possible because we're enabling those connections within the platform. So that's what we were doing at Zomato through the product and outside of it, right? And that just compounds over time. And that led us to then rolling out transactions, which today, like online food delivery, is like at the core of what Zomato does, right? But like even if you think of it, the backbone of Zomato, like we think of a restaurant rating, you would trust the rating that's on Zomato because of this community that sort of came together, right? So I think at the core, this is the moat that gets built. There's an organic flywheel. The network effect is super powerful. The organic benefits of this are like multifold. One is obviously you get feedback, around the product, and you can build what your customers want. So technically, even before you have a product, you can have a community that will give you a deep understanding of, what people really want. And
a great example is Rocket.
Yeah. So they started the community right from the get-go, right? Second, I think you basically get a set of early adopters who are in the journey with you, right? And it's not just I think the traditional way of thinking is there's just one like marketing team and that's it. Like here, you basically have if you add value, and that value goes ahead. It in turn benefits it drives word of mouth. It creates champions for your brand, and that's Notion's the best example. They have a amazing set of champions who talk about Notion wherever they go, and they love Notion, and they think of it as their product. Like they will share feedback, they will talk about it, and get more people hooked onto it.
So as a designer, if I didn't mention Figma, I'm doing.
Figma,
I'm not doing justice here. Yeah.
The community plugins that they created, the more plugins, it's the same thing. So the more plugins that are created that makes lives of designers easier, the more designers will start adopting Figma, and that's the flywheel that they created, right? So you would see that with so many other companies, where users can contribute and connect with each other, leads to more outcomes for both the user and the brand itself.
I sort of get an idea, but
sorry, I have
no dog. Is he coming here, close to you, or? Yeah. So you mentioned different things every PLG company. Yeah. Your core customers. I mean, main target person are that PLG SaaS company, which is in a good stage.
PLG SaaS developer tools, open source projects, all of these, would be our customers, or persona that we serve, and that's the primary one.
Yeah. So every PLG company sort of kind of more than 50% have this community backup, and
Yes.
like many of them use this community to get early stage feedbacks, like you mentioned
Not
Rocket.
just that. I think
No,
the
like
problem.
many things
Yeah.
involved, like as you said,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
content, reviews, like network
So I
effect.
think like maybe I'll articulate the problem. So what today is happening, and why we're building the support copilot is customers engage. I mean, earlier it was just the product, and then there would be one channel for support, right? And that was about it. So it was one-on-one interaction mostly. Like today, I think the customers engage in multiple touch points. The conversations happening not just around the product, like, and they're connecting in the community. They're sharing some feedback. Let's say it could be your Slack connect, could be on Discord, somewhere else, or email or chat and so on. So how do you get a single view of what's really the pulse of your customers, right? So that's a problem. And once you have that, then what does that? How can you leverage that to serve your customers better, right? And that's what we want to solve. How can you provide support in the fastest way possible, in as automated a way as possible, like with the technology that's available today, right? And we see that as a core experience. If we solve that, like the experience for our customers can be taken 10x, and so they are likely to stick around longer, use your product, become a vocal champion of your product, right? So that's the outcome that we want to drive.
You're upgrading the support system to the next level.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
with the help of community and things around. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
community
Yeah.
AI and things stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like we were talking about CLG. I mean, community-led growth.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a couple of things, saying like early stage feedback, network
Yes.
effects, content from the users, and things like. So, like, what do you think? How, like, when should a community, like, when should a company need a community? Like, Rocket Lane, should they start before starting building their product, or like after the building the product, for leads and communicating to the users, they can build a community, or like when is the right time to start a community, and how it helps in different stages of the product and the company, and how it
Yeah.
helps the different teams also. Yeah.
Yeah. So the earliest should have been day zero or before,
Okay.
and the second best time is like today, right? Um, the reason I say is that I think like it stems from the purpose of the community, right?
Okay.
So the purpose, I don't think it should come from organic leads, or that's not how community works. Like, in the sense, it takes a lot of time to nurture it. I think like eventually it leads to a byproduct, which could be organic leads, but at the core of it is a purpose, which could be hey, let's get basically, I'm passionate about customer onboarding or like customer support. I'd love to connect with other customer support, executives or community builders or customer onboarding professionals, um, and discuss about something, or to create a space for us to learn from each other, right? And that's probably the intent with which it starts. Uh, uh, like, for example, Rocket Lane, I don't think there's another customer onboarding professionals community that exists. So for every professionals out there, it's always great to look back and say, I have a community. I can go back and raise a question. I can be myself. I can be vulnerable. I can talk about some issues I'm facing in my organization or in my role. And there are people who can advise because they are going through the same journey, right? That's probably where it stems from. So there is a place where people can connect and support each other and learn from each other, right?
Okay.
And then that's one angle, right?
Okay.
And it could also be something, let's say the purpose could be that, hey, we are creating a community for product support. Our community, for example, is we provide support to our customers through our community, right? And we do a bunch of other initiatives that helps them connect with each other. We share resources for community builders, and we invest a lot in that. But at the core, we started a community to start sharing roadmaps, getting feedback from customers. It's a place where we provide support, and that is our purpose, and it's very clear, which is how we started our community, and now it's evolved into, hey, it's a place where we have community leaders from the best companies that are out there, and you also get access to Threado's like roadmap, the earliest features, everything that's out there, right? So yeah, I think you start on day zero, be clear on the purpose, and also on who you're building it for, right? And it's not about opening up the doors to like 10,000 people. Like, it's about identifying who's the right. It's more. Yeah, you probably want to filter out more than.
I think we should talk about this also.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
I've been part of different communities in Discord and Slack.
Yes.
Like I don't think I personally contributed anything to them. I don't even reply to any chat. Sometimes I don't even open the chat. Like I have particularly few channels. I go look for some resources, check it out, then come back. That's it. Like primarily, I would say that I don't have any particular sort of need. Like if I'm into any sales community, they sort of onboarded me. I don't know why did they do that. Like I'm part of some marketing communities. I don't know why they do that also.
Correct.
Product community, but I'm there. So I think they should be very aware of who are they onboarding, and look at their profiles, and so that the community will be more healthy, and will be, there will be a quantity but no quality there.
Yeah. So, very good point. I think like we are all part of multiple Slacks or Discords today, right? But not necessarily active in any of them, right? Like, maybe one or two, where we might spend time. There are two things here. One is a lot of communities, probably just look at the numbers, and want to get just like grow, but that's not a great way to think about it, right? And we've in our community as well, we initially started out, and I don't think we had like great set of filters, so we'd let anybody in. But the problem like we faced was that the folks who were coming in were not the right persona. We were like, hey, we've got like this one kind of persona and this completely other type of persona, and there's no match at all, right? So what I mentioned earlier was, does the space create a feeling of you, do you belong here? Do you feel comfortable enough to share or ask a problem? So then we decided, hey, let's actually create a form. We ask, okay, why are they joining, or what would they contribute? And it may mean less number of people joining our community, but that's fine. At least till we reach about 1,000 members or so, let's keep that filter. And then that 1,000 base can invite more people like them, right? So we're now in that journey at this point, and I think it's much better because whoever comes in feels like there's a space where they can ask, and be sure that similar people will support in the journey, right? So that's one. I think being intentional about building the early days of the community is very important. But we follow that at Zomato as well. I think when we launch a new city,
I think community onboarding should be should happen at least for 1,000 members, which you said. Like maybe put it into like 100 members. It should be happen in the way of recruiting in the company. In my personal opinion.
Yes. So we do one-on-ones with everyone who joins in, right? And not as a filter, like post joining in, but and that's the same approach that we use even at Zomato. So let's say we launch a new city, Melbourne, London, wherever, right? Before that, we first meeting one-on-one with the top 200 foodies, who are passionate about food in the space, because we are building Zomato for that city, and we want to take that feedback. We want it's not like, hey, use this product, but what do they value? What are their aspirations? And just really understand who are they, and maybe they need help with something, or they maybe they're passionate about something. We know someone, we can connect them. So it's super important to get started with that, and then grow from there, rather than just saying. I mean, the easiest solution would have been, hey, let's do Google Ads and get 10,000 users in, right? But then I think the foundation does not build well. It's very flaky when that happens. So that's one. Second point, I think, is around lurkers. You
Okay.
mentioned that you're not active in a lot of communities, and I'm also not active. But being passive is fine. I feel it's unlikely that you will see everyone being active, but at the same time, I think there is also value in I'm just taking an example. I'm part of like few Slack communities, like around newsletters, where I have connected with people. Like I have, um, you know, there've been one-on-one discussions where I've got help, I've helped out, but I'm not like active in the channels, like for whatever reason. But I get a lot of value in terms of the updates from the community, right? And it's super valuable for me, like from that sense. I think it's important to have that base as well, right? And who's whether they engage or not, it's fine. But like, as long as they're getting value, I think that should be the goal from a community builder standpoint. That hey, we're putting this out. This person, even though they're not active in Slack, they are like consuming the content. They're seeing some value in it, and that's still a great thing. So I would still see it as not a negative. The lurkers, they're probably coming back or like consuming content in some form because they're getting value from that.
Yeah. Like, how is it going with community champion? Like, are you like onboarding the proper personas, or like sometimes like
Mhm.
leaving these like persona which is not fitting to the like
Yeah.
the community? Like, how is it going
Yeah,
with you?
yeah. So we do. Yeah, I think like we've been applying the filter for sure, and
What's the number
one of
now?
the
Community champ.
we have 400
Okay.
members on Slack, right? And the criteria that we apply is that they are running a community right now, which is at least like sizable in terms of at least like more than 50 members or so. And if you don't have a community, then whenever you start one, it makes sense to join. But like if you don't have a community, that persona we've not yet catered to, right? So a lot of people apply with the intention of starting a community, but this is not a place for
Okay. Okay.
that. So if you have a community, then like you will run into problems when you're actually doing it. So we wanted to be a place for them to like discuss and obviously get support. It's not a must-have to use Threado. So like people can apply and they don't need to use Threado. But if you're using Threado, then you can get support as well here.
And like, how many of them like in the 400 using Threado?
Yeah, about one-fourth of them I'd say are using Threado right now, but three-fourths are folks who know Threado exists. But yeah, we're not. It's not a sales channel as well,
Yeah, yeah,
so and I think we want to keep it that way. Like it's a space like they know Threado exists. Some of the three, four, like there's a 300 members who are not using will start using Threado like at some point, but we don't want to force feed that. Yeah,
right. Okay. Yeah, we'll come back to the old question.
yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
how community helps the company? Like in product side, you said that it helps in the early stage, like for the building the
Yeah,
product. Later that to prioritize the roadmaps and
yes,
get feedbacks. In what else ways it supports?
yeah, sure.
The product team.
Yeah, so I think one is on the product front, like which we discussed. Second is support itself. Like if you've seen like communities, whether it's Notion, Glide, or anyone else, it's a place where if you're stuck with a problem, you can go and ask there, and people who have used your product or someone from the team can respond back, right? So earlier, let's say it would be you're waiting for a support agent to like get back to you, and it might take some time, right? But today, let's say even if you look at the newer tools, let's say LangChain, OpenAI, any of these, right? The best way to get support is go to the Discord server, ask a question, somebody's going to answer because they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
used it or they're an advanced user, right? So it reduces.
And Threado now making it more simple. Like instead of someone
Yes,
comes
yeah.
and answer the question, the AI bot will make it. Yeah, you
Yeah,
said yeah.
so and that AI bot exists in Discord as well, so
Yeah,
it'll
yeah.
have the knowledge of what has been asked before, so it can a lot of times like users ask questions that has been asked before, so uh, we are making the knowledge base accessible in a better way, right? And improving that support experience. So yeah, so I think the support experience enhances when you have community. It reduces the time in time of response. And for a business, it's also like support cost is like more affordable. Like it's not like, you're not having to invest a lot in, the support side of things, because the community itself, like, is able to come together and support each other to some extent, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's on support. I think the third is on marketing side, right? A lot of community building, as a byproduct, what happens is you have different sets of users who are along a commitment curve with the product and the brand. So you will have a core, maybe top 1 or 2% of users who are super engaged. They are the core, like, they basically identify themselves as, like pretty much like a team member of, or like, they wear the brand on the sleeve, right? So that forms like a word of mouth. Like, these are folks who are, like I said, talking about, and for about the brand and the product, um, purely because they love it, and it has benefited them in their journey, and they want to share that knowledge with others, right? So marketing wise, I think it's basically that organic, like, flywheel that stems up. So you get, there are people who aspire to be like, like the champions, and then you nurture them, so that folks, they're getting a lot of value, which could be like early access to your brand. You get merch, like there could be different ways to structure this. Them getting recognition on the platform, and that's what, like at Zomato, we work, like, we designed the experience around that. So like, you could be, there were 13 levels of foodies, so you, depending on, how much you've contributed on the platform, and you get that recognition, not just on the platform, but like, offline. Like, we'd call them to office, they get to meet the team, they get to see like Zomato's early features and so on, right? So I think on the marketing side, you can think of it as an extended, um, team itself, right? So like I said, we hired also from, some of our most passionate users, so
yeah.
they eventually helped build Zomato, for that country. Right. So that's on the hiring front and marketing, side of things, right? And lastly, yeah, like from a sales standpoint too, everything like what I discussed means like more users coming into the funnel, right? Organically.
Yeah, like
And yeah,
sorry to interrupt.
sure, go
Yeah,
ahead.
like when we were talking about PLG, there is this term called PQL, and like
Yes.
like every time something comes into the market, they just add a term to it and call it like
Yeah.
CQL this time. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know if CQL will catch on, but yeah, like it is the, in a way you could say that, like, more people discovering the brand coming into the funnel, through this flywheel, right? And, um, that obviously is something that happened. Like I'm just saying, for example, if it's a community of 100,000 customers, and, maybe some customers started out, like they onboarded, like, to your product, they faced a problem, they asked a question in the community, somebody answered, which helped them use your product and get the value from it. After a few months, maybe they faced some other issue, asked a question, somebody else answered, that helped them again use the product. And over time, they've gotten so much value from the community, then they now start sharing more about, like, and helping other users, like in the community as well, who have faced problems, right? And they'll talk about this like in their own circles, and they get recognition, and that gets more people into the funnel. So, at some point, like, these people, let's say free trial customers, might talk about pricing. That's a signal, like, for the business to maybe think of, hey, okay, there's somebody's interested in becoming a paid customer, right? So I think it's these intent, signals, like, and being on top of that, like, help, definitely in multiple ways. Yeah.
right. Yeah, like this is something like very interesting part of the episode, I guess. Okay, if I need to take some example, like okay, if I'm starting a community,
Yeah.
um, I am not sure about my product.
Mm.
Like okay, like see something like if I'm building a community for podcasters around the globe,
Yeah.
I may build a product later like Descript or anything. Okay, now
Mm.
for example, I'm saying. So what would be my next 6 months roadmap, like how I should take it ahead and what are the things I should be doing.
Yeah, so I think like in terms of like startup, you know, being sure of what product will work is right from the day zero is very rare. Right, and similar in our journey, I think like we've had the first product that I built for Threado, like we transitioned from that a long way, about 9 months into it and into what we are doing today. It has evolved over a 3-year period, so it's very rare that you will know from the get-go that this is the product that we're going to scale. What you're trying to, which is what I said, like I'm passionate about the problem, I'm not wedded to the solution. The solution can evolve, right?
Okay.
But being passionate about the problem means that I'm surrounded by people who I'm actually adding value, and they're also sharing what problems or what are the frustrations, and you're discussing more and more and understanding this more and more, right? So when you think of community, I think the intention should be not that, hey, how do I get them to use this product? Like, that I think is probably not gonna work in almost all scenarios. But it's more around, okay, let me help, like, in whatever way I can, to people in the same boat, right? And let me understand what are they going through. I'm going through some things, like, let me open up and let me understand where I can help them. And that then generates a pattern around, let's say maybe 6 months into it, you hear like 2 or 3 things often, right? And maybe that gives you an idea that, what if I build a product to solve that? I think that's a
Let's say if
better way to
I
think.
take
Yeah.
bring up like or 10 of my podcasters around me,
Yeah.
like come on, like let's do a WhatsApp group, like or anything, like I don't need a
Yeah.
Slack for 10 members, I guess, like, yeah,
Correct. Yeah.
WhatsApp group or Telegram
It
something.
can be a WhatsApp group. It could be like, you're just doing a Zoom meeting every week or whatever it is, right? And I think the more and more this grows and you will start seeing, and it does not even have to materialize into a product. Like what I mean is, it could just be a group that's just meeting and discussing things. It's like, let's say podcasters, 10 of them or 20 of them, just share, like, we can share, like, you can ask a question, I might have some answer to it. Like you said, you asked me a question of what tools do I use, like Riverside, or what do you use it for. That's a simple like thing, right? And over time, you will start seeing patterns on, okay, what are people struggling with most, right? If you have to think of building a
So
product,
as a
that's the best.
community manager,
Yeah.
like from like what I observed from Threado, like you have different types of content from
Yes.
things like OS, I mean the community OS, which is like excellent resource out there, like the Jarvis, Atlas, Community Atlas,
Yeah.
and things like that, and also you have like a bunch of well written case studies in the site.
Yeah.
So, as a community manager, more than people helping each other, you help them with content.
So not just that, I think, so as a community builder, you're largely in the background. So ideal scenario, like it's a designer, like it's similar to a designer kind of a, sorry, I think my internet, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you're designing the experience or the space or ways in which people can discover value, right? And it can be through connecting with other people. It can be through content that you're curating. It can be through a product that you launch, right? It could be whatever, right? So it's not just that community builder is just thinking of what content will serve, right? Like I'm having a one-on-one with you, and maybe something comes up, and I feel, hey, let me connect Sudarshan to, I'm thinking like, Zero.io's founder, right? And um, it's basically that, like, I have a pulse of, okay, where you might need help, um, and then, like, for example, we are coming up with a resource kit for community builders who are thinking of a podcast, right? So that's how I think it's more of, I'll tell you about community OS as well. Like, when we didn't have a product, um, and I, before that, like, was part of on deck community builders cohort. I spoke to like 100 plus community builders, and I've also wanted to pen down like our playbook at Zomato. So taking all of that, I wrote down like me and the team like put together
How did that
community
help?
OS. Yeah,
Like when did you join on deck cohort?
yeah. So I joined about 8 months. I think six to 7 months after starting Threado.
Threado,
So
like
that's when I
somewhere
joined.
around the end of 2020 or 2021.
It was the summer of 2021, I think, March
2021.
2021. Yeah.
Like yeah, like
Yeah.
how many of them helping you now, or how many of them are like your customers currently? Like I mean the 100
I don't
cohort
have a
members.
count.
Okay.
I'm, yeah, but there'll be few of them are our customers, but it did help us change direction to what we're building today,
Cool, cool,
right? So
cool.
I was building something else at that point. After speaking to about 100 of them, I realized that okay, the problem is somewhere else, and we started building the community management platform after that. Um, but that was the thing. Like before we had a product, so like the community OS was like if I had to create a product with just content, like that would be valuable, like for any community builder, right? What would that be? That's what I just me and then Shalini and the team like put together about like 39 points, and we expanded on it with our own thoughts, with what we've discovered by speaking to others, and then we curated resources and put it out there, right? Um, and that stemmed from just understanding okay what are the pain points people are facing on a regular basis, and we felt okay building this content would help give some view of that, right? And it did really well, like that helped us connect with more customers before we had the product. So that's how we got our beta customers. At that point we had an early prototype, we launched community
Okay.
OS, we got about 2,500 signups from that. And from that, I mean, obviously not all signups were relevant, but then a good number of them we then
I'm one of the
moved.
irrelevant guy over there.
No, I think at some point it does become relevant, right? So yeah, so from that list, like folks who had communities on Slack, Discord, GitHub, we started giving access to our beta product, right? And then yeah, then a lot of them became our customers and so on. So that was our organic way of building. Um, I think like it's always a challenge to find your first set of customers. Like Community OS helped us solve that in a large way.
I think. What about the other? I think I knew about you like during the community OS launch, I guess.
Yeah.
What about that Atlas, Jarvis?
Yeah. So I think what we
How was it ROI for that? Like after the launch?
yeah, so which we still do today. I think like we do a drop every right now we're doing a drop every 2 weeks, right? And 2 to 3 weeks is what we usually take. But yeah, back then we were doing a drop a month. And so it'd be Community OS. We had a serendipity bot for like making one-on-one connections and so on. The idea was like create micro tools or resources that we know like will add value, right? And it's also a great way to keep shipping things and getting feedback on what's resonating with our customers, right? So the idea was not just the other option was like we're just building a product for a year and then we launch, right? Like but then that's a very closed way of working, and so like, we wanted to be out there. We wanted to like keep speaking to more and more community builders who we want to build products for, right? And the same thing like applies now. Like we want to help businesses provide better support. So like we are creating more and more content for around that, and speaking to like customer support executives, and like just constantly keep speaking to the persona who you are building it for, adding value to them, because that's how like I think at least we discover what to build, right? Because we don't want to just throw a solution at them. Like it has to stem from our intuition, and but also like feedback from what we are hearing. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So yeah, like in between we mentioned a few things like the tech stack, basic tech stacks. Like you said, like this can be done in Gmeet also. This can be done in WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
can you suggest a basic tech stack to build a community? Like, what are the basic necessities? Like, if I can afford, I can buy a Slack. Then, buy a tool like I mean the Threado and like plug it with it. But if like I don't really have like the members with me, like I need to onboard them personally. So, what will be the tech stack which I should be using for the next 6 months?
Yeah, so I think the tech stack matters less. Um, More than I think what matters more is, like I said, the purpose, who you are building it for, what is the community about, like what is the value that it'll get, um, and from that stems like how do you want to design it,
Okay.
right? And um, rather than the other way around, because the community could be, let's say, I'm just taking an example. I'm just saying, like, let's say people who cycle, right? They love to, like, go on cycling trips. That community is more about meeting in person, like, once a week, like on Sundays, and planning a trip, and that can be on WhatsApp, but it's largely like in person, like meetup. There's no tech stack, like, there's some coordination that's needed, but beyond that, it's like real, like, meeting and then growing from there. um, or it could be like developers having, like, a Discord forum, where they ask questions. So I think the tech stack totally depends on what is the community about. But it's for a community to exist, it can be a small group, but a way for them to connect with each other, whether it's in person, could be online. The design of that, like, I think varies, like, vastly. Um, there are some patterns, obviously. I think, like, if you're building a community for professionals, like, startup professionals, or anyone in technology space, they are likely to be on Slack. So it makes sense to, like, I think the principle is, like, make it easy for them to connect with each other, right? Rather than adding more friction points. Um, Similar to how you approach with product design, like, you want them to get to the aha moment faster, right? Rather than saying, okay, do 10 things. Um, but the only thing is, you also want to keep the quality of experience, like, really well, which is where you have a filter for, identifying who's the right person to come in. But for that person, don't make it super difficult, at least at the start, like, to do it. But yeah, like, there could be communities where, let's say, it's paid community and that's hosted somewhere else, but the motivation is very high, because there's a commitment that people are taking. I'm joining this community, I'm paying some amount. I don't mind which platform it is on, like, so it varies depending on how you design the constraints.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Like I have this a doubt with me. Seeing like there are communities which are built by companies like
Yeah.
in case of Salesforce, HubSpot, whatever it is, like
Yes.
Notion. On the
Yeah.
other side, there are communities like Saster, like communities by Richard. Like I mean, Richard King. I think am I right? Richard King. Like he runs a
Um,
bunch of communities like
okay.
Sales Alliance, Market Alliance, product. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Correct.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
like they get sponsored by the communities once in a while, like
Yes. Yeah.
to build the product. I mean, to like
Yep.
to promote the product and things like that. So like for me as a person, I mean like me as a company, should I like put my effort on building my own community or like go buy another company? I mean buy another community out there or like just partner with them like for the particular purposes. Like what would be the ideal approach to do it? Why should I start from the scratch if something is already
Yeah.
like if
Yeah.
you see
No.
like there will be like thousands of sales communities there, thousands of marketing communities. Like why should I start my own community again?
Yeah. Yeah. So totally right. I think there's no wrong answer there. There are going to be communities that exist in the space, right? And it is, if I draw a parallel, it is same question with building a product, right? So you are likely to build a product that almost always, like, that idea exists in some form, like,
Yeah,
already, right? So then the question is, should that product exist, right? Because should you start building the product, right? Because there may be like 10 other products which are similar doing something, but I think there's always a unique insight that you have, or that you want to bring to the world, and then it's about making that vision come true, right? So I think, like, the barrier should not be that, hey, there are existing communities around sales, like, why should I create one? But it's more around let's say, even for us, like for our community champs community, right? There are communities for community builders, but we are providing an experience that's unique in our own way. Like it's around. I think we have a very unique way of building products for our persona, and we see that. That's great. Yeah. So I think like when so yeah, talking about our own community, right? Like community champs. So obviously there are communities for community builders, like, but we took a stance that we will be build it in our own authentic way. Essentially, like it's a community where like we are obviously getting the best in the industry together, right? And we'll be intentional about it. We want to like understand with them and share our roadmap, give them the product feedback, and you will see that what we are building like evolves based on this feedback, right? And I think that's a great way to just think of us as someone who is championing community builders. Like we are there for them, and then we are understanding their pain points. We're building solutions that make sense and makes their lives easier. And that's what. And in that process, we're also helping like builders like tight knit group, which can learn from each other and connect with each other, right? So, which is what I mean. Like it doesn't have to be. Not all communities are the same. Like they're different in their own ways, as with products, right? And it's about like sticking to the vision and having clarity on what is the community about, right? And it doesn't have to mean that. So not every business needs a community, right? And which is why you will see a lot of times that communities get acquired too,
Yeah, I
right?
suddenly get
Whether
this thought like
yeah.
you should definitely make a directory of communities who wants to sell
Yeah.
themselves, and also like
Hmm.
let companies to buy them.
Yeah, no, and we see more of that happen. I mean, in the last 3, 4 years, that's happened. So many, there are examples from there, right? So whether it's like Stripe acquiring initially indie hackers, or like maybe acquiring CMX. So there are examples of this plenty where there's a synergy between the product and the community that exists, right? And we will
Sorry,
continue
who
to see that.
acquired CMX? You, I mean, no.
Bevy.
Bevy, okay, cool, cool.
Yeah, where we acquired CMX, right? And so yeah, I think build or buy is a decision that depends on what makes sense. But yeah, like I don't think the barrier should be that there are already existing communities. Yeah, it totally depends on what stage of the business you're in, what makes sense at that point in time.
Right, okay. Yeah, just like we were talking about, like all about, I mean, Threado, then community building and stuff like that. Like another thing which really kind of attracted me, or like which I really liked from you, is like you built the marketing team at Zomato. Then I really like your team, like started from like Shalini. I think she is like the early employee of Threado, then Abhishek, heads tech, and Bhuvan, like design side. I have to look at his profile. Karthik in product side. Like how it happened? Like how did you pick those people? Like how did that hiring happen? Like how long you took to like pick every individual like that?
Yeah, so Shalini was the first employee to join, right? And I had worked with her at Zomato before, so we had overlapped for a year when I moved to Zomato Bangalore. And I was bootstrapping Threado at that point. I had a product ready, and a lot of my time was spent on coding. I was at that point building the product out, so 80-90%
So you code.
I had learned coding just 4 months before Threado and built the first version of Threado, right? And
Dude, this is amazing. Like, main associate, like, okay. Then marketing at
yeah,
Zomato. Like,
yeah, I never imagined
you
myself
will
that
be
I
like
would code,
28,
but
29 in that time when you start Threado. Like,
no, I was more. What was he? 33? Yeah, 33,
33.
34. Yeah.
33, you came out and learned some stuff from scratch.
Yeah, I was
And that is
34.
also
Yeah,
in tech
I was
side.
34. No, so yeah, I think like coding was never on the agenda, but the previous 6 startups, which ideas which I'd worked on, I couldn't find a tech co-founder, and the idea just fizzled out, and I just was at a point where I was just super frustrated, and like I said, when the COVID hit, I had to drop the previous idea I was working on. I had a friend, like very close friend, who was helping me out, but he had a full-time job, so I just at that point I didn't have any ideas to work on, so I spent 4 months learning.
Right, okay.
Python and Django, and that was through a community and as well. And then I built the first version of Threado, right? So yeah, spending a lot of time building it, and I felt like we had a product, so we need to get off the ground. So that's when I reached out to Shalini, and she was kind enough to join and help out on the GTM or like the marketing side of things, right? And yeah, like about 8 9 months after doing that, I didn't want to code more because we were changing the direction of our product. Like I said, like after speaking to 100 community builders, like I felt okay, we need to build something else, and I really wanted to hire someone senior on the technology side, and got connected to Abhishek, and he joined as
Like, how did
co-founder
that
and
happen?
CTO.
Is he your friend before, or like?
No, I didn't know him before. I had asked my network, so that I can bring on board someone to manage and build out the tech team, and that's how I met Abhishek through a common friend. And then we spent 3 months. So he took a leap of faith and came on the journey. And when I was bootstrapping, and we spent 3 months, and we felt like yeah, I think he complimented me in many ways, and yeah, and yeah, he joined as co-founder and CTO after that, and yeah, then we started building the team out, right? So yeah, I think that's how we started. Then we built a prototype, and then we started forming. Like we hired like a couple more around that time, and then we did raised our seed round. This was September, like between July to September 2021, right? And then we formed the core team after that. And then KP, Bhuvan, all of them joined. I think about like 6 to 9 months after the seed round, essentially. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, like, how's that seed round happen? Which is like you have logos like
Mm.
ChargeBee, Zomato, Traction, Rocket
Mm.
Lane. I mean, also this Suhas. I mean, the
Yeah. Correct.
product
Yeah.
folks. Like, I think he
Yeah.
really like gave a lot of insights. I think building this
Mm.
community. I guess I have seen you on his show on the YouTube also.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, how does that happen? How is that like? What?
Yeah. Yeah, I think like again, it was a non-linear journey for the race as well. And so and like I said, my intention initially was to bootstrap, but then we changed direction to what we started building, and that was definitely something we needed capital for, and we decided to raise once we had a prototype and couple of like early beta customers. So when we reached that milestone, and we were sure, I wanted to be sure that okay, we needed capital, like, and we had like a prototype, right, and sort of had planned for that. So yeah, Abhishek Goyal from Traction, he was the first to commit. So we'd done a demo somewhere, and he reached out. He was interested in learning more. And
Somewhere as in like where it happened. Like,
so as part of Accel C to Scale program, so that was
how it helped the I mean the seed round. The
no, it's not like the Accel C to Scale program was. It's a no strings attached program, so there's there's no, but it helped immensely because that was a time when I was bootstrapping, and I didn't have a co-founder, and Shalini had joined. I met Abhishek after the program actually. Um, so for me, they were a bouncing board to really think through on the market, the product, and all of that. So by the end of the program, we changed the direction and we decided, okay, let's build this and let's raise capital, all of that, right? So definitely, and it's an super program. I'm still in touch with the founders who are part of that cohort.
How big is the
And
cohort? Seed skill thing.
so the cohort that I was part of, I think we were, I remember about 10, 11 startups, right? And about 18, 19 or 20 founders, I think,
Okay.
in total. And today, I think it's evolved into Accel Atoms, right? And but at that point, it was called C to
Seed
Scale,
skill.
and then that has evolved into something else. Now it's like very different since then. But yeah, like I think through there was a demo day there, and then Abhishek reached out after that. Like Abhishek Goyal from Traction, he reached out after that. He knew Pankaj as well, so like I think Pankaj and Dipinder also like were angel. They were one of our earliest angels. And then Abhishek saw the product and then he liked it and he committed. And I think so. Initially, we got a few angels on board from our network, and like some of like Abhishek introduced me to someone else who was interested and so on.
Okay.
And then yeah, so Gemba Capital. So they were the first institution, like, I would say, or a micro VC to commit and support us. And then Speciale Invest was just like, I think
Oh,
in
where's
the
the part
same
of it?
week.
Special invest.
Yeah,
I
Speciale Invest is also an investor in
okay, I didn't
us.
notice it.
Yeah, so Gemba Capital, Speciale Invest, Point One Capital, and then Vertex led the round, Vertex Ventures. And yeah, so they were run in parallel. So I think we spent about a month raising this and getting the term sheet.
I'm talking with the portfolio of Special Invest now.
Okay.
Last podcast, which is with the train that.
Yeah, we are customers of Train.
Okay, cool. Right.
Great team. Yeah.
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 So yeah. Um,
So yeah,
then
we raised from that was a seed round in September 2021 is when we completed it. Yeah, that's how it started.
cool. Like that seed to scale program kind of helped you for that in the round, in the seed round.
Yes and no. I think like in the sense the seed to scale was not linked to the round because we raised I think close to 5 months after the seed to scale program.
Right.
But the demo day helped us like I think the seed to scale program gave me clarity on what we needed to build and what direction do we need to go in. Right. And it definitely helped me at a time when I needed that support. So it was a brilliant program. I think the way Accel had designed it. But yeah, like it. I think like 4-5 months later, like is when we did the seed round, which we reached out to like several VCs and that's like took about a month basically to close. Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. Dude, like one thing which is in my head, like all over the episode, like after half an hour of talking with you, like I was making the rapster to talk like a monk now. The thing is, like, I have this thought of making podcast in a way that it should happen like a proper YouTube channel thing. Like, I mean, like after every movie is released, the stars in the movies, directors come on YouTube shows and they just talk with the host. Like that is what my intentions are. Like after your product and launch, I wanted to have you on my show. And their questions will be like, dude, can you sing a song for me? That goes.
No, that was a one-time thing. I mean, we might do a song again at some point, but yeah, it was fun exercise. Like our team came up with that idea, and yeah, we had fun doing it.
I think definitely you should do it sometime later, but it'll definitely work again. I think that's a playbook for the product and launch kind of. Yeah.
So the thing is, yeah, like, I don't know if it's a playbook, but basically the reason I think it worked is because doing things that people don't expect always like works, right? And I think like product had launched like with that video. I just felt okay, like let's just put ourselves.
I think that wasn't not intentionally made to rap. That is kind of a spoof of rap which you did, but it turns out to be a.
I did give it a good shot. I gave it an honest shot, but obviously, yeah, it was a low quality production in terms of we were very scrappy and I'm very clear. Like initial idea was we do a proper shoot and all that, and right now budget is zero. We go. We took a WeWork, we shot it on iPhone, and like it was as scrappy as it can get. Yeah.
Even this podcast, like the intention is to, why not I talk to founders after the product and launch, okay?
Yeah.
Then what, like if I talk to founders after some big hirings, like some important hirings. So anything which is kind of like
milestone.
Anything which is kind of milestone, which instead of you going to your story or some other like PR out there, come on my podcast, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
That is my recent thoughts like flowing inside. Like it was started with some other intentions. Then it didn't go that way. Then my mind is on this side. Like when I started talking to her, I was like, okay, this episode going to be fun. But later I thought, okay, like dude talking like a monk.
No, I'm not a rap star, right?
No, like you are very clear. I mean, you kind of try to put everything in a flow that the guy who listens on the other side can understand things easily. So yeah, really appreciate that for that. Really appreciate that. But on the other side, I wanted to make it more fun and that way.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll wrap it up with a few questions.
Sure.
In the community side, what's your personal opinion? Content or events?
Yeah, I think combination of both. Yeah, so it can't be just one.
Like I didn't expect any diplomatic answers. Like go with one. Like what would you suggest?
So we started with content, so
Okay, cool.
I'll stick with content. Yeah.
So what are your few books, newsletter suggestions?
Newsletter, Lenny's newsletter definitely. There's another one called MKT1. So it's around B2B SaaS marketing. I think it's great content.
Okay.
The Generalist is great, like, for what's happening in technology space.
Okay.
Yeah, those are three that come to mind.
Like all of them are
newsletter,
paid. Lenny, I know.
Lenny's paid, MKT1. I mean, like both have like very good free content as well. So I think all three have like very good free content. But yeah, like the paid one, like it gives you access to more.
Are you a newsletter person, book or a podcast? Like what your main source of content? Like what would you say?
Yeah, I'd say book. Yeah,
Okay.
book more. So podcast, I listen to All In Pod, like, and our Community Decoded, those two, right? And
All in pod, which is about?
All In Pod is like about everything that's happening in the tech space, tech politics in the US and so on. So, but yeah, largely it covers everything that's happening today. And yeah, Community Decoded like is our own. Like it helps me just every week while driving, just keeps me listening to a persona. Books, yeah, mostly it's been books. I think like in no particular order. I
Top three
usually.
picks.
I'm reading Dune right now. It's fiction.
Okay.
So I at least the last couple of months I've been like more on the fiction side. Business side, top three picks are I don't know. Sapiens is not a business book, but like Sapiens definitely is comes to mind. In terms of also movies, like and like I think the most recent that I can remember from business side like was Air, the Michael Jordan, like Nike's movie on the Nike Michael Jordan like deal, basically. That was the most recent one which I enjoyed. I think I like the hustle culture there. Yeah.
Cool. Like what one advice you would give your 20-year-old self?
20-year-old, just I'd say just explore and have fun. Like nothing else. Like yeah. If I go back in time, I'd do the same thing. So I'm like just let it flow. Like let it go.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Like amazing talking to you. Like different things. I think it is like closely more than like 1 hour 40 minutes, I guess.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for your time, Pramod. All the best for anything around Threado and like your personal life.
Thanks a lot, Sudarshan. Let me know if I can help in any way. Yeah, and looking forward to the episode.
Sure. Bye.
Yeah. Okay. Bye. Thanks. Bye.